All right. Good morning, folks. Welcome to the Seattle King County Coalition on Homelessness and our Helping Students Experiencing Homelessness, or McKinney-Vento 101. My name is Jody Rao. I use she, her pronouns. I'm our Senior Programs Manager. We have with us today a lot of amazing folks that are going to be presenting. So before we dive into the training, just want to get a few sort of logistics out of the way. So we are recording. This will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. We will be sending out the slides after the fact and any other resources or links that come out. I'm loving all the folks that are introducing themselves in the chat. As I said kind of earlier, we love to see names, pronouns, agencies, how you're connected to the coalition. We also love to see faces. So if you want to come on camera, we would love that. We understand that's not always feeling super accessible on any given morning. Just know that if you do not want to be included in the recording, just stay on mute. You can throw any questions, comments, resources, links into the chat, and I will be monitoring that and making sure we get it into the recording and for the benefit of everybody who may not have as easy access to that. I can see someone has already enabled closed captioning, which is great. So that's something you can enable at the bottom of your screen. And yeah, if you want to come on off mute and be a part of the recording, just go ahead and raise your Zoom hand. But we'll try to get everything in and going. So we'll be spending the next 2 hours together. So the coalition, it largely is a policy and advocacy coalition. We have 50 plus individual and member organizations that do work in housing, homelessness, and lots of different human services. We work really closely with elected officials, our community partners, our allied organizations, our civic workers in government. And the purpose of this training is to really make sure that folks that are working with students or families that are experiencing homelessness have a really good understanding of what the federal McKinney-Vento Act is, what the rights are of students, and then how you can walk alongside them and advocate for them as best they can, and what resources are available. So we have a really nice agenda. We're going to have about 30 minutes to really go over the law itself. We have invited a McKinney-Vento liaison from the Seattle Public School District to kind of talk a little bit more from the school side of it. And then we have many partners that are kind of really doing a lot of different work around students and families experiencing homelessness, just so you can have a good understanding of some of the resources are out there. And again, if you have a resource that you know of, or your agency or program offers it, we want to hear about it. Throw that into the chat. So that's how we're going to spend the next couple hours together. So I'm really excited to introduce Kayla Blau. She is a master's social work, and she's the senior education strategist with Building Changes. She's also been a consultant for various nonprofits, including our very own Coalition on Homelessness. We've worked with her for the last several years on this training and among other projects, and she is a wealth of knowledge. She's worked in social services for over a decade, worked in public schools in the McKinney-Vento office, and has worked with families experiencing homelessness. So really huge wealth of information, and I'm really happy to introduce Kayla. So please take it away.
Thank you so much, Jody. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for being here. As Jody said, my name is Kayla Blau. I use she, her pronouns. I was just telling the coalition staff before y'all got on that I first came to this training in 2015 as a participant. I had just got a job at Broadview, which is a local domestic violence shelter in Seattle, and had no idea what McKinney-Vento was, and felt really under the water. And so I'm really grateful for the coalition existing and providing trainings like this one. And I see some familiar names in the room, so I'm excited about that, and know there's a ton of wisdom in the room. So please feel free to come off mute, add your wisdom or questions throughout the training. it's, y'all are the ones that are working on the ground. So please feel free to make this training as helpful as it can be for you. Before we get into it, we would like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. And as I said, please feel free to put questions in the chat. Come off mute. You're not interrupting me. It won't get me off the flow. Like, I really want y'all to be able to participate as much as you can. And I love that we're already getting a lot of names and intros in the chat. And if you could please enter in the chat, how familiar are you with McKinney-Vento resources? So a 1 is like McKinney who, I don't know what you're talking about. That's why I signed up for this training. 2 is like, I've heard of it, but like I'm a little fuzzy on the details. And 3 is like, I'm an expert. I've been doing this for a long time. I could lead this training. All right. So we've got a good mix, a lot of 2s. Awesome. Okay. Great. So this is going to be a very basic one-on-one training, and at the end, then I'll provide some resources of how you could dig deeper and learn more, because it is the McKinney-Vento program or the McKinney-Vento law is really underfunded, and there's a lot of opportunities for trainings and awareness building. But in short, the McKinney-Vento Assistance Act is a federal law that was put into place in 1987. And the main gist of the program is to support and protect the educational rights of students experiencing homelessness. And what that looks like is ensuring that young folks who are experiencing homelessness have school stability, access to school, regardless of if they have all the birth certificates and immunizations and things you would regularly need to register for school. It also should support academic success and be child-centered and always acting in the best interest of the child. So how that works is each school district has a McKinney-Vento liaison. Sometimes they are also like the foster care liaison and also do a bunch of other things. So sometimes it can be like a 0.5 position. But the McKinney-Vento liaison is really your first point of contact if you're working with a family that you think would qualify for the supports of the program. And on the coalition website, there's a list of all of the different McKinney-Vento liaisons in King County. So that's a helpful resource as well. So just a little bit more in detail here. So the rights of students under the McKinney-Vento Act are, again, that right to immediate enrollment, the right to attend their school of origin, which we'll get into in a second what that means. The right to transportation to and from their school of origin, meaning even if they were displaced and had to move, say, to a shelter in Kent, but they live in Seattle, the McKinney-Vento program would support providing transportation to and from the school that they were attending before they became homeless. The right to participate in the same activities as other students, so really removing those usually economic barriers to participate, whether it be in sports or CTE programs, the training programs, or even things like prom or school dances, things that their housed peers have access to. That's what the McKinney-Vento Act can support, them having the same access to those services. They also have a right to the dispute resolution process, which we will go over in depth a little bit later. And also in general, should remove barriers and revise policies and practices to make school an accessible and safe place for all students, including those experiencing homelessness. So the definition of McKinney-Vento is a little bit different than the definition of homelessness for HUD, the Housing and Urban Development on the federal level. The difference is that the McKinney-Vento Act includes families that are doubled up, which that means that a student is maybe couch surfing with an auntie or like staying at a friend's house. They're not staying in a traditional shelter setting, but they are staying in someone else's home that they don't have legal rights to. So their family's name is not on the lease, and it's for economic reasons. So the doubled-up population makes up about 70% of homeless students in Washington state. So a lot of folks in that situation might not think of themselves as homeless, like they might just be, in between spots, but they are able to access these resources if they want to. And so what you can kind of go through this checklist if you're trying to decide, like think of, okay, would they qualify for this program or not? It's really for students who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. And fixed meaning it's permanent, like they couldn't just, get kicked out because like the people they were staying with changed their mind or what have you. Regular meaning that it's predictable, they can go there every night consistently. And adequate, meaning that it meets the physical and psychological needs typically met in home environments, things like running water, or heat and things like that. So that's kind of the defining set of circumstances of who's eligible for McKinney-Vento. And you likely won't need to be, deciding who is not McKinney-Vento eligible. You can really just refer the family to the McKinney-Vento liaison at the school district that they're in for them to work through that. I see we have an ask to share the PowerPoint. Jody, will it be shared out? Yeah, it'll be shared out after. Awesome. So another subset, I guess, of McKinney-Vento that provides a lot of support for this group is unaccompanied youth. An unaccompanied youth is any young person who is not in the physical care of their legal parent or guardian, and that could be for any circumstance. So I've worked with young folks whose parents have been deported or incarcerated or are otherwise unable to care for them, and so they're kind of on their own. Or I've worked with young people who their families were able to care for them in different ways, whereas like they would stay with a cousin or an auntie, but didn't go through the legal process of, becoming legally in foster care. So they would also qualify for being an unaccompanied youth. Oftentimes this is like an older, like a high school age student. And I've worked with unaccompanied youth who are 5 years old, who are just in that situation I named before, where they're not technically in foster care, but they also are not in the physical care of their legal guardian. So there's extra supports for unaccompanied youth. As you can imagine, it's a lot for a young person to navigate all the school system, like getting fed, where they can have a warm place to sleep at night. Sometimes this can look like couch surfing or sleeping in abandoned buildings or in encampments, things like that. And so liaisons, the McKinney-Vento liaisons at the district level will work with unaccompanied youth to connect them to resources, as well as take into consideration what the unaccompanied youth wants to do as far as their educational journey goes, of where the best school is for them, safety-wise, and where they want to go to college, etc. And there's been some really exciting new laws since COVID that support unaccompanied youth. So before COVID, it was really tricky to get medical services for young folks under 18 without a legal guardian. Now it's really great that they can obtain consent from a McKinney-Vento liaison to get primary health care and dental, medical, dental, and vision services. And this last bullet is really exciting for me personally, because I've witnessed so many unaccompanied youth struggle to get state identification cards, which they need to work and to support themselves, because if y'all have ever been to the DMV, they want 1,001 documents proving, where you were born, like all your social security and these things that they might not have access to based on their living situation. So this new law allows unaccompanied youth to obtain state ID cards without those identifying documents with the support of a McKinney-Vento liaison. I will say with this one, since it is a pretty new law, when I went through this with a unaccompanied young person, It took us about 8 months because we had to educate both McKinney-Vento liaison and the folks working at the DMV about the new law. So I would just say to reach out to OSPI, Office of Homeless Youth, if you need support. And it's like a packet of paperwork that the McKinney-Vento liaison just needs to fill out and sign, and bring that along with you can either even print out the RCW, the law that says that this is that they are able to do this now, because it's still, a little bit new. Folks are not quite aware of it yet. And makes a huge difference in the lives of young people to be able to obtain those IDs. I just want to pause real quick. Is there any questions or comments on what I've covered so far? Okay. So for the school of origin that I mentioned earlier, the school of origin is where they attended school when they were permanently housed, or the school they were last enrolled. And they have a right to continue going to school there if they want to. Again, the law is really meant to support and protect those educational rights. And we know that changing schools multiple times leads to negative educational outcomes. And so, if it is in the best interest of the student and the family to stay enrolled in that same school for that stability, they have the access to continue attending the school of origin. Even so, say a family was staying at a shelter in Seattle, and then they moved to a shelter in Kent. Again, like the Kent School District and the Seattle Public School District would share the costs. Usually one district does AM transportation, the other one does PM transportation, and they have access to that transportation through August of that school year, even if they became permanently housed. So if they found permanent housing somewhere in the middle in Renton, they can still access that transportation to their school of origin until August of that school year. And after that, then they would have to transfer to their new neighborhood school. Again, McKinney-Vento supports immediate enrollment for young folks, including online or hybrid classes if those are available at the school district. This is where it gets a little tricky because it doesn't define what immediate means, and that can be a little subjective to admissions offices. But that means without delay. And so if you are running up into issues, then you can try to elevate it through the dispute process, or loop in the McKinney-Vento liaison as well to help advocate. Oftentimes, when I was not working in the school system, when I was working at the shelter, I would get really frustrated of like, oh, why aren't they responding? Like, this kid needs to get to school. It's been 3 days already. And then when I started working at the school district, I had over 500 students on my caseload who were experiencing homelessness. Like, it is not for lack of wanting to support. It's just, to have a little bit of grace and a little bit of patience while still advocating for yourself and for the young person. Because oftentimes it's not like malintent. It's just a really underfunded and understaffed mandate. So again, just if they do not have previous academic records, immunizations, proof of residency, which is another point I wanted to make. Oftentimes we get questions of if a young person is undocumented, do they have access to McKinney-Vento services? And the answer is yes, they do have access to, they do qualify for McKinney-Vento services. McKinney-Vento does not, share information with ICE at all. Those are like two separate entities. And so the McKinney-Vento liaison should never be asking questions about documentation, citizenship, things like that. And as far as transportation goes, again, they should be offered transportation, whether that looks like a cab, a yellow bus. Sometimes it is like a bus card, like an Orca card, if the young person is old enough. And it should begin without delay. And we saw during COVID, a lot of the transportation folks ended up, finding other professions because no one was going to school, and they've had trouble refilling some of those positions. So you might experience some delay, and a lot of school districts are getting creative about filling this really dire need for transportation services. They're using contractors, such as there's a program called Hop, Skip, Drive, where it's kind of like Uber, but just for students experiencing homelessness, which is great that they're getting, a little bit more creative about outside of the bus or outside of what the school district often traditionally has provided. There's also something called in lieu of agreement, which means that if you are working with a parent who has access to a car and the time, the availability to pick up and drop off their student at school, they are eligible to get reimbursed for gas. So that's a great option, again, if they have the vehicle and the time to do that. So there's the dispute process that is available to all students, but especially relevant for students experiencing homelessness, that if there's a dispute around eligibility, meaning that, the student really wants to keep attending their school of origin, but they're getting pushback from the district in any way, then there's a process that you can go to dispute that. And there's an office called Office of Education Ombuds, which is kind of like the top of the food chain, if you will. Like after you went through the dispute process at your district level, then they're a great resource as well. And just to be strategic about when you're going through the dispute process, it's great to have all of the information there that written down, including why the action is refused, a description of other schools considered, the reasons why this was important for the young person to continue their education there, and appropriate timelines to ensure that the deadlines are not missed. Are there any questions about the dispute process? Okay, I'll also throw in there that there's a dispute process as well for disproportionate discipline. Like if I worked with a young person who was racially profiled at his middle school and thus disciplined for something he didn't do. So we went through this dispute resolution process in that case as well. All right, so we're a little bit early here, and I don't think Janaea is here yet, but is there any questions, or are there any, situations you're encountering at work that you'd like to work through here as a group?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Hawa. I'm with Bright Spark Early Learning Services. It used to be called Childcare Resources. And I just want to know, so I'm a statewide homeless navigator. I think I have a presentation later to explain some things, but I want to know, like, I understand that you said give it grace to the, the McKinney-Vento appointee person, but sometimes like around, especially in the summer, we do this kind of like virtual outreach to gather some information, and also families who are experiencing homelessness, like to see what is available to them. We can help them apply for the subsidies, but like if they're looking for, place to get a meal in the summer or even in the winter, clothing, things like that. And things have changed since COVID. Like before, it used to be like all type of different events and organizations providing things. And lately, when I try to do, because each of us in our call center, we are tasked to reach out to a specific region, the McKinney-Vento lead. But it's, I understand people leave jobs and things happen, but sometimes like none of us are able to get any response from the liaison. And I was wondering what is the best way to reach them, and actually what are the resources, and are there like specific organizations that help children who are experiencing homelessness, especially let's say the child, it's not even with family, they are maybe like a teenager living alone, or like you mentioned, develop with family, but not like his parent or something like that. I know that was multiple questions, but that's something I've been trying to get. But yeah, please, if you can, a little bit.
Yeah, thank you for that. I know it's a big struggle when I've been there, when you're emailing and you're calling and you're not getting any response back. I would say to try and look at the district's website of if there are other contacts. Sometimes there's more than one person in the McKinney-Vento office, or seeing like which department that's under, trying to reach out that way. You could try going through admissions. Like the school district in general is just one ball of red tape. Like there's lots of bureaucracy, and you know, it can be hard to navigate. Even when I was working in the John Stanford Center in Seattle Public Schools office, it felt like impossible sometimes. And so to just, you know, try to take a deep breath and don't give up, and be persistent in just being the squeaky wheel. Unfortunately, it does sometimes take a little bit to build that relationship or to get responses. I also know some McKinney-Vento liaisons don't work you know, during the summer. Most of them do, but some, depending on the district, it might be different. As far as what services for unaccompanied youth, I'm wondering if anyone on this call wants to throw in the chat if they have you know, services within their organization for unaccompanied youth. The ones that I worked with are mostly in the Seattle area, but I would be happy to connect with you to see if there's other, you know, are you thinking mostly in Seattle or in
Well,
statewide?
my work is statewide, so
Mhm.
I would like to know. Like I know it's a big task, you know, but if it's like I totally get now that you said it, the you know the bureaucracy, and maybe looking at it and see you know what are the other people that I can reach out to. But yeah, it will be like more of statewide, and some areas in the state, as you all know, there's not really that much of resources going on.
Mhm.
So I was wondering like how I can kind of like tag team with the liaison and maybe like specific organizations in our counties that does help families.
Yeah, that's a great question. Like you said, some rural parts of the state, there are no shelters at all. They're really struggling as far as resources go. We're pretty lucky here in King County in that way. I would love to welcome you and anyone else on the call to Building Changes School Housing Network meetings. I just started there, so I'll be leading those once a month, and those are statewide coalition meetings and connecting people in the school system and people working in nonprofits to share resources. And I believe we'll share a link later of how to sign up for that. It's the last one on there.
Yeah, I will drop that in the chat here in a second. I want to just reiterate what Kayla was saying of if you know of resources, go ahead and throw them into the chat. I'm going to, you know, all of this, we'll download the chat and we'll make sure that any of the resources and the links are included along with the slides that we send out. And we do have a couple things in the chat. So someone is asking, can every parent with access to a car get gas reimbursement if they're able to drive their child to school?
So that is specifically for families that are enrolled in the McKinney-Vento program. And I think it's mostly on a case-by-case basis with the McKinney-Vento liaison. I've never heard of it being, you know, rejected, because it's kind of a win-win. Then the district doesn't have to figure out like, okay, are we going to use a bus or a cab, etc. So I would say to connect with, you know, the McKinney-Vento liaison in that district. But if they are eligible for the McKinney-Vento program, it's more likely than not to be approved.
And then we had a comment that I think is really relevant to what we're talking about. And then the next comment in the chat. So it says, I'm very just a lot of the nuance, I think, that ends up happening around this, and why it's really important to really understand those rights. And then all those resources. So Naomi, thank you so much for dropping in the chat. Legal Counsel for Youth and Children provides legal services to youth and young adults in a variety of areas, and you can find out more about their youth homelessness program throughout the state. And Naomi dropped the link there. And then Naomi and Co are going to have time at our resource fair. So to maybe share a little bit more or to ask questions directly. But so thank you for throwing that into the chat. I will step back for any other comments, questions, resources that folks want to share.
Yeah, again, just opening it up if you have a situation that you're facing with a family that you're working with and want some community wisdom around. That's what this space is for. Right. Well, I'm going to lead us into one of a scenario while we are waiting for the McKinney-Vento liaison to join us. Would anyone like to read this scenario out loud?
We can, but can you just share how do you pronounce that name?
Chaya.
Okay. Chaya is enrolled at Mission Elementary in the Sojourner Truth School District. Shaya and her mom recently moved to escape an unsafe living situation. They are staying in a confidential shelter 15 miles away, which is in the Frederick Douglass School District. Shaya's mom would like her to finish the year at Mission Elementary, but she's not able to drive her to and from school. Does Shaya meet the definition of homelessness under McKinney-Vento? What is Shaya's school of origin? Can Shia receive transportation to and from Mission Elementary? How would the circumstances change depending on the facts, such as Shia's age, distance of commute, personal safety issues, and time remaining in the school year?
All right, thank you. So what do y'all think of the first one? Does the student meet the definition of homelessness? See a few nods, a few thumbs up. Yep, so she does meet the definition of homelessness. And what is Chaya's school of origin? Mission Elementary. Yep. And can she receive transportation to and from Mission Elementary? Yes, so under the McKinney-Vento Act, yes, she can. Awesome. So I see that Janaea has joined us. Good morning, Janaea.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay.
welcome. So Ms.
Hi.
Janaea Proctor-Mills is the McKinney-Vento liaison at Seattle Public Schools. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time. We know that you're really, really busy. So I appreciate you taking the time to chat. And I think what folks were wondering is really the difference between your role and family engagement specialists or social workers, or if you have any tips, things that students, families, or providers should know.
Sure. So, my role as the McKinney-Vento liaison is to just oversee McKinney-Vento program and make sure that the law itself or the act itself is acted out in our district equitably and correctly, I guess. In that, we have a team of family support specialists that support the schools. The family support specialists are here at John Stanford, and they support our schools. We also have obviously our building point of contacts at each school. And in that, there are some family support workers. Family support workers aren't at every school, they're at a select amount of schools, and they provide family engagement support. They mainly support with all McKinney-Vento foster care students and then students with like intricate needs um, on a case management type level. There are social workers at most of the schools in either a point 0.5 or a 1.0, depending on the need of the school. And sometimes the social workers will act as building point of contacts as well. And so that is kind of the lay of the land. The difference between the family support specialist and the family support worker is that the family support specialist is here at John Stanford and they support a list of schools, whereas the family support workers are assigned to the schools, and they support one school at a time. And so that is pretty much the difference between those. Were there other questions that I was supposed to answer, Kayla?
No, that was really helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to open it up if anyone in the room has a specific question. You're welcome to put them in the chat or come off mute and speak them out. And while folks are thinking about that, maybe Janaea, if you could share just a few tips of.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So I was wondering, when you are transporting children to a school, so we offer a preschool program, and some of our families that attend here are homeless and they are living out of their car, so they don't actually have a residence. Their car breaks down, but they do want our school and they want our services. Would you guys be able to provide them with transportation to and from school, like through hop, skip, drive? And if so, is it required that students are a certain age to be transported to and from school without an adult?
And this is at, what school is this at?
Wellspring Early Learning Center. We have a preschool program that supports homeless community.
Okay. Okay, cool. So that's a great question. We do provide preschool transportation, but we provide preschool transportation for the students that are enrolled at the SPP preschool programs, pre-K programs at Seattle Public Schools. So students would have to be assigned to Seattle Public Schools to receive the transportation, and then if so, we provide transportation from home to school. And typically, if they're living in a car or living in a shelter or in a transitional housing facility, we'll provide transportation from wherever they are. If it is a public place, if they're staying at campgrounds, we can provide transportation from those as well. We just would need, address coordinates or like a public place to pick up. But yeah, we do provide preschool transportation. I think we have provided it for 4-year-olds. And I think that's pretty much it. It's pretty interesting because the students do have to get in the car with their car seats and stuff like that. So those would need to go in and then be removed when they get to the SPS school site.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure thing. Any other questions?
I have a question. My question is, I just started recently looking into the McKinney-Vento. I'm just trying to understand how many languages do you guys have that support the families?
Mm-hmm. So we typically we support all languages, and we definitely use a language service, Linguistica. We have some Spanish-speaking staff here. The enrollment department also has a pretty vast majority of languages when it comes to getting students, McKinney-Vento students, enrolled into school. And then typically, if my staff can't use Linguistica, then I am no stranger to messaging a family via email or via text, anything I can do to support families. So usually you'll find me using using my translator on my phone just to make sure that families are supported. And that's pretty much how we do it. We just support families wherever they're at in whatever language we can. Are there any other questions?
Jody, do you have a question? I see your hand raised.
I do. Janaea, thank you so much for being here. And part of what we were talking about, and both in Kayla's formal training presentation and then came up in the chat is just kind of holding that tension between the fact that this is a significantly underfunded mandate, and you all have such huge case rosters that you all are dealing with. And I know you've been doing this work for a while. Do you have any thoughts or tips or anything that you've seen work really well for how the folks on this call that are largely working with the families on the provider side to be advocating a way that's, effective, if they're starting to run into issues with a particular school or a particular district around the needs of the families they're supporting? Any thoughts that you have that you've seen work really well, or that these folks can kind of tuck into their back pocket as a tip for moving forward?
Yeah, I have tons of tips, I guess, but sometimes they really escape me. So yeah, I definitely have been the MKV liaison here for quite a while. It's almost going to be 5 years next year. But prior to that, I also was just like you all. I worked at Southeast Youth and Family Services. I worked at Therapeutic Health Services. I also worked at YMCA it's now called Social Impact Center, but it used to be Young Adult Services when I worked there. So I worked with students and families who were chronically homeless. And so just coming from that work to here, number one, I would say, not that I don't have compassion for you all, because I know you guys are very underfunded just like us. But I would say put the school staff in your shoes when you're reaching out. I think for our program, we definitely are very underfunded. Our program has about right now, I want to say about 2,400 MKV eligible students that we're supporting at the 100+ schools. And so what I would say is definitely do your research and know what supports can be offered at the different schools. Reach out to the McKinney-Vento liaison, ask to get on a call if you can. I'm definitely available to get on calls and talk on the phone and just answer any questions. But each school is going to be different when it comes to the types of resources that they have. But what is definitely required is immediate enrollment, transportation to and from school, free and reduced lunch, and access to any other resources that the general student body should and would have. And so just knowing what school districts have what is important. I know at my school we have a pretty um, pretty pretty big population of MKV students. So we offer what's required, but then we offer some more. Sometimes we'll have gift card support available. Sometimes we'll do Christmas support. Sometimes we'll do Thanksgiving supports. We offer tutoring support to students. So it's going to be different depending on the school district because of the different types of funding that they have. And so just knowing who the liaison is at that school district, and then knowing what resources they have available is going to be important. If there are specific forms that you can submit on behalf of your students, ask for those forms. I know that we definitely will communicate with our external partners and community-based organizations as long as we have a release of information form from the family. So if you're working with the family, immediately ask for a release of information so that you can communicate with the school district on their behalf if that's something that you want to do. Because that will allow you the time and opportunity to have open dialogue with the school district so that you're able to get those needs met. I know for us, we will provide our community-based organizations with our transportation forms, our financial request forms. We provide them with our student housing questionnaire so that they can send that stuff to us directly without having to go to the building point of contact. And so that's been really, really helpful because sometimes community-based organizations just like to get things done quickly. And the way to do that is to have access to those forms without having to go to the school and wait. The other thing is that in our state, there is a building point of contact legislation. So there should be a building point of contact at every school that you're working with. So going to that school and saying, hey, who is the building point of contact here that supports McKinney-Vento and foster care students is really, really important. Every school should have that, and they should have a list of that information to provide you if you ask for it. On the SBS site, it's right there on the public website so that you can reach out to the building point of contact at the school, and they know to reach out to us directly. So if you choose not to get forms or reach out to the liaison or the staff at the McKinney-Vento office, then you at least should know who that building point of contact is at the school so that they then can go and support the student as well. And so that's pretty much the only, you know, real information that I would give out. If there are more questions that come from that, I'm definitely willing to, you know, answer more questions.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. We've had a couple more questions come in through the chat. And I'm going to do these out of order, but of the 2,400 families that you are supporting, do you know what percentage are kinship families?
Well, kinship as in, can we clarify exactly what we're referring to when we say kinship? Because
good question. I'm going to defer to our commenter either to come off mute or throw something in the chat. Okay, well, maybe while we're getting some relatives raising relatives. Thank you for that clarification.
That's a good question, and that is one that I don't actually have the answer to. It's probably one that I can get the answer to, but I will say that there are a large majority of students who are being raised by different relatives that I know of. The other thing is that we have a really large majority of students living with relatives, and so those are doubled up families. That's probably pretty much the largest majority of our, you know, McKinney-Vento number is doubled up families.
Great, thank you for that. And then Adam had another question. How do you support families with cultural backgrounds that are hard to understand? And I'm not sure if that also requires a little bit of clarification about what hard to understand means.
Yeah, I think I feel like I could answer it, but let me know if you have follow-up questions. With families that are of different cultural backgrounds, number one, we provide a lot of training to our staff, and that's, you know, easier said than done because textbook training is not actually real life training. I hate to say that, but it's not. So when it comes to different cultural backgrounds, I personally go in with an open mind, just because I am usually of a different cultural background. Um, and then the other thing is that typically, you know, I'm a minority myself, but not minority because I guess we're not saying that anymore. We might be saying something else. But I'm Black and proud, and I say for my culture there are different, you know, nuances that come with raising students and just rearing students, and so I definitely encourage my staff to go in with an open mind, knowing that some families are going to have, you know, challenges when it comes to homelessness, but also going to have some cultural barriers. I remember supporting a family about 2 years ago, and this family could get mileage in lieu when we were offering it, you know, heavily. But the family didn't want mileage in lieu because she was fleeing from Jordan. She didn't want her husband to find out that she was homeless because where she comes from, it's a prideful thing, right? And so she didn't want to admit that she was homeless. She didn't want to be flagged homeless. She didn't want to get any resources. And so that was a huge thing for her culture. And so I ended up having to have several conversations with her about this and what the McKinney-Vento flag meant, and that it just only meant that she was going to get resources. I had to really be, conscious about how I spoke to her, just because where a lot of our families come from when it comes to their culture, their name going on a list of other homeless families, but also them receiving these resources could mean that they're less than, or makes them feel less than. And so I encourage families, and I let them know that at any point in time, I could be in the same situation that you're in, right? And so we're all one paycheck away. And if we're not one paycheck away, we're one big stupid decision away from being homeless as well, right? And so that's how I go into a conversation with families. If families are speaking to me about their culture, I'm open and honest about it, because where they come from is different from where I come from, right? And how they're raised is different from how I'm raised, right? And so I just go in with that, and go in with an open heart, an open mind, and that's where I encourage my staff to start. And if you receive anything less than that, let me know, because this is the MKB program at SPS, and I don't want that to be a reflection of not just SPS but of me. I'm the one managing the program, so I don't want it to be a reflection of me or of SPS. So if that happens, I put my information in the chat. You can text me. You can text me from an anonymous number. You can leave me an anonymous voicemail, and just let me know your thoughts, because I'm definitely open to it.
Thank you, Janaea. Any other questions for Janaea? Okay, well, if any come up after the training and you're like, oh, I should have asked that, Janaea has graciously put all her contact info in the chat. So thank you again so much for your time. We won't take up any more of it, but thank you so much for being here.
All right, see you guys later. Thank you.
Bye. All right, so we are going to transition over into our resource fair. And before we transition there, Jody, I'm wondering if you can share on the Google Doc, there's a link I just posted on called the LIFT program. I don't know much about this program, but I just heard about it. It's a grant for racial justice through LIFT. And when I worked at the shelter, we had a similar grant where we could send domestic violence taxis to pick up families experiencing homelessness. Well, specifically in that case, survivors of DV. But it just made me think of it when we were talking about getting students to school. Might be something for your organization to consider applying for. But that being said, I will pass it over to Jody for the resource fair.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is a portion that we've done the last couple of years where we've kind of thrown our net out pretty wide and see who has availability and interest to join, and really kind of share a little bit more about their services and how they serve families or students that are experiencing homelessness. So we are really excited to have David Moser here from Lutheran Family Services. We've got Hawa Ali from Bright Spark. We have LaKayla Irving from Team Child, and maybe another, I thought I saw another Team Child person. So if I need to pin you, let me know. Max, thank you. I will pin you in a moment. Max Kaufman, we have Todd Hobart and Nicole Gorini from Olive Crest, and then we have Naomi Strand from Legal Counsel for Youth and Children, and Joan as well. And I do not Nganga, and I apologize because I think I probably just butchered your last name, Joan, so please forgive me. I will look for you and pin you. So we've got about the next 55 minutes for this. So we're going to start with David and Joan from Lutheran Family Services. They've got about 10 minutes per organization to really talk about who y'all are, what you do, how you, who do you, who you serve, how best to refer, and any other just nuggets of information that are going to be really helpful to our families. So David and Joan, please take it away. Thanks for being here.
For having us. Okay, you've got the link. Sorry, we've got multiple computers happening here. Is there an echo?
There is a little bit, not as bad as it was before.
Okay, I think we fixed it. Thank you. Thank you for having us here. My name is David Moser, and I'm the Housing Services Manager at Lutheran Community Services Northwest. And I am here with Joanne Nanga, and she is our Refugee and Immigrant Services Manager. And we do have a couple of slides to share. If we are able to share our slides here, we'll try. There, we got it. Excellent. Can you share them on up here?
I think I can see them. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, figuring it out. So Lutheran Community Services, I don't think they can see it now.
We've got a lovely image in a Doctor Who. That's the screen we can see. Yeah.
Slides. So
Sorry.
Sorry, we're both logged in here, so we are trying to share it from Joanne's login here.
Okay. What about now?
There we go. We got it. Thank you so much. So Lutheran Community Services broadly is pretty much statewide. We have services of some kind in most Washington state counties, but our Joanne and I both work with the Greater Puget Sound District, so services really focused on Snohomish, King, and Pierce counties, and a little bit in Kitsap. And so we're going to take just a couple of minutes for Joanne to talk about our refugee and immigrant services, and then I will talk about our housing services.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Joanne Nanga. I'll just walk you through some of the services that I believe could help your clients. The first one is the Asylum Seekers Advocacy Program. I'm sure a big number of your clients are asylum seekers or undocumented. So under this program, we can help them with case management, which also includes housing navigation. We've made some connections with landlords and apartment owners who have very low barrier housing and understand the unique needs of asylum seekers. So they make it easier for these people to be housed even without a background, credit history. Sometimes they, help with a few months of rental assistance. So I think that's a great resource for your clients. Under this program, we also had rental assistance, which is now depleted, but we're hoping to get more. And once we do, we'll make sure to share that information with all the organizations. And then we also have the Asylum Assistance Program that provides wraparound case management for asylum seekers or people who qualify for federal benefits. And that is humanitarian parolees, refugees, people who have been granted asylum. We just make sure to provide them with resource navigation, but also to make sure they remain on track to getting their green card, because there are certain things that could happen that stop that process. Under this program, we also have DOJ accredited representatives that help asylum seekers renew their work permits or apply for their initial work permit, and we do that for free. We don't charge, but however, if you're renewing your work permit, your clients need to know that they will pay for the USCIS fee. We just won't charge them to help them apply for that. And then we have our Youth of All Nations program. At the moment, the only people who qualify for this program are Ukrainian humanitarian parolees and Afghan humanitarian parolees. And we help, this program is for the youth, whatever age they are in school. We help them with after school case management, after school programs, and group activities such as summer camps and things like that. And it's all free. And then we have orientation days. They're monthly. We're going to send out an email with all the dates. And these are no pressure working days where you come in with your documents. We help you with resource navigation. Even though you don't qualify to be our client, we'll help you with knowing where to get the resources you need. And if you do qualify to be our client, we make sure most of our departments are there on that day. And so you can get signed up on the same day. And this is very helpful for families who, getting money for using public transportation is expensive. So they just get signed up for everything on the same day.
And those orientations are at our SeaTac office right near Angle Lake, just south of the airport. So now I'll briefly discuss our housing services. Like I said, we have services across most of the state. These particular services are focused across 3 counties, primarily Snohomish, King, and Pierce. We don't have as much in-house right now in King County as we would like. We really are wanting eviction prevention and homelessness prevention funding, and that is something that we are working on advocating for more of. But right now in King County, we have rapid rehousing that is accessed through coordinated entry, and we are just starting that up. We have had previously for several years the Snohomish County rapid rehousing and resource navigation through coordinated entry in Snoco. And more recently, we are also just starting up Pierce County rapid rehousing and also eviction prevention, which we're very excited about in Pierce County as well. We also have a pretty large Oriah Housing Stabilization Services, which is statewide. We have about 5 different case managers working on that program, and that is specifically for humanitarian parolees and refugees, where there are specific eligibility, where the date of arrival has to be between a certain window. But we served over 1,000 households in that program statewide last year. And something that's not on here, but that I'll mention that going forward, we are planning to be getting involved in more advocacy activities, working, hopefully supporting a lot of the amazing work that Skitch is doing and other organizations like the Washington State Low Income Housing Alliance, and really working on issues around the housing crisis, which is the root cause of all of these problems that we are discussing to begin with, and trying to get at the root of some of that problem. So looking forward to working with some of you in coming months on that as well. Any questions?
Yeah, I had put in the chat that we were going to hold till after, but I think it doesn't make as much sense, and I'll just kind of monitor it. So we did have a couple questions. So it looks like Carolina was asking, is your services for a particular geographic region? And I thought I heard that maybe it depends on the service, but I'll hand it to you too.
Yes, it depends on the service. Some of them are towards the whole Greater Puget Sound area, and some of them are only in King County. So it would have to be on a case-by-case basis.
Yes, most of our refugee and immigrant services are based in King County, but yeah, one of them was specifically for the Fife School District, and some of them are more general. And I see the question also about the wait list for refugee asylum seeking clients to get connected to case management services.
Yes, there is currently a wait list because there's so many walk-ins that we get. However, your clients don't have to wait for us to get them on the wait list. If they attend the orientation day, we will be able to help them with whatever they need.
And we'll send out, we have a flyer for the orientation days that Kayla, we can send to you to send to the list if that works, with the specific dates and location information for those, as well as contact information for our other programs.
Great. And then I think we've got time for one last question before we move on to Bright Spark. But question from Adam, how do you reach out to the forgotten voices that need these services?
So when reading that question, I just think of asylum seeking families, especially those that have languages that are hard to translate. And for that, we have case managers. We're fortunate enough to have case managers who speak different languages. And usually we plan outreach in different places, such as the, homeless encampments, for example, the one in Kent, Econo Lodge. So we just go there, provide outreach and provide information, tell them our walk-in days, and yeah, that's how we make sure to reach them.
Yeah, and likewise for our resource navigation programs in particular, we are getting out into the community. We're in a lot of different community centers in Snohomish County. A lot of different, we're going into shelters and lots of various community centers as much as we can to find people. And but that is really kind of the eternal question of what is the best way to provide access for people.
And one thing that we find is happening naturally is we also have a community resource center downstairs that gives out food every Thursday. And on the second floor, we have Health Point that offers health services. Even if people are afraid to, approach organizations, they're going to come to those two places and they refer clients upstairs to us. So that helps as well.
That's great. And Adam, I see your hand, but we do have to move on to Bright Spark. So I'm gonna maybe ask if you'll put your question or follow up into the chat, and maybe if David or Joanne are able to answer it, that would be helpful. But David and Joanne, thank you so much for being here. And Joanne, I'm so sorry that I mispronounced both of your names. My apologies.
That's great. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Appreciate the invite. Thanks.
Yeah, really wonderful. And the two of you, along with Adam's questions, also prompted where are all our agencies out in the community, and how might they find you, and what that outreach piece was. It was a great question, so really appreciated it. I'm going to hand it over to Hawa Ali from Bright Spark. Thanks.
Thank you. Do you have the presentation, or I have like the PowerPoint?
I can find it in my email and share. Sorry, hold on.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know how it worked. My supervisor was supposed to be here, and I'm like, oh, am I supposed to share it? Or...
Understandable.
I have it somewhere. I can pull it up. I just don't know how it works when someone else is presenting.
You are a co-host, so you could just share your own screen if you want.
Oh,
if you have it up.
Okay,
that
cool.
should work.
I should have sent you a message. Wait. Okay. Let me find the PowerPoint. Here it is. Okay.
And Hawa, we probably could move on to a different organization if you want to take a sec.
I found it.
Yeah.
I can share for you.
Great. Okay.
Oh, it's right here. But yeah, okay, go ahead.
Beautiful.
Does that look great?
I believe so, yeah. Oh, you know what? You can exit that out and I'll just share my screen. I have
Okay.
it. Yeah, thank you. Can you all see the PowerPoint? Awesome.
It's not in presenter mode. If you want it in presenter mode, we can just see your preview slides. So, but we can see it.
Presenter mode. Sorry, it's something's blocking. Like that? Oh, okay, cool. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Hawa Ali, and I work at the Bright Spark Family call center. And what that means is Bright Spark is a nonprofit organization, and then it houses a childcare aware Washington family call center. It is statewide, where families call in, and we provide them with two major things, which is applying for childcare subsidy and families finding childcare centers that are licensed and fit into their needs that take a childcare subsidy. That we also have on in the system childcares that are not taking the state subsidy, but the majority of families we serve throughout the state are families who qualified for the state subsidy. They could be experiencing homelessness or are on the other low income subsidies. Sorry, for a second, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so we partnered with the Seattle Preschool Program and then the Hair Star. That's a newer thing recently. And we support families and friends, neighbors, childcare FFN program. We have our own team within Bright Spark that does that. And also we have also consultant for mental health services. And then we have the professional development for childcare providers, a coach. There's a lot of coaches within Bright Spark. Oops, what did I do? Sorry. So coaches are basically, if a person did the training for early achievers, childcare providers, they're assigned to a coach. This coach is gonna make sure they meet all their licensing requirements. They are doing their professional development, staying on the top of their licensing, and anything that the state requires to make sure they're providing adequate childcare to the children. Does anyone have any questions about that slide? I know I'm gonna probably. And then my portion of what I do is basically any families within the state of Washington that are experiencing homelessness, they do get 12 months childcare. The big difference between low-income childcare and someone who's experiencing homelessness is that there's no copay for families who are experiencing homelessness when they get approved for the 12-month childcare. And also, when you are on a low-income childcare subsidy with the state, there has to be some type of activity. You need to be working either 20 hours or going to school 20 hours. When family is experiencing homelessness, that barriers have been removed because they're living in a shelter in a car, so they don't have to meet that requirement. So what I do is I have the access to the Washington Connection website where the families apply for the subsidy, but I can do that, and I can do a little bit more support of maybe sending a childcare center to them and seeing if there's a organization I can connect to them about diapering, car seat, send them the information about 211 about housing. They can also straight go to the Department of Family Youth Services, which is the DCYF, where actually eventually all applications will be approved by them since they're the state subsidy provider. And then also what I do is I do follow up with the families within like 30 days and 60 days to see how they're utilizing the subsidies, and especially families who are experiencing homelessness. Sometimes they did get approved for the childcare, but due to moving around, and especially around this time when the weather change, there is not the most dire thing is not for going to a childcare. It's really finding a place they can stay. But what we try to do with the state is that to make sure the parents understand this is really good to take the child to a childcare so they can get fed, they can get a hygiene done. So it's more of like trying to really meet the families as a whole, and it's up to the parent eventually to say, okay, I'm going to take the child to a childcare. And also there's a lot of trauma that comes with a lot of families. They're attached to the child, especially if the child, we noticed that if children are like anywhere from 3 months to 2 years old, the mothers don't really feel like taking the child to a childcare and leaving them there for most of the day because they're anxious, they're not sure what to do. So letting them know like, hey, maybe there is something you can do while the child at school, maybe get into a program or do some type of self-care for yourself. It's easier said than done when you don't even know where you're going to sleep, when you pick up your child. So it's just trying to meet families where they're at. These are the ways that people contact us. The statewide family service line within Childcare Aware Washington within Bright Spark is open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30. And the families call, like I said, there's also another person who provides a regular subsidy that can help them with the application. And then the families call, and we can also give them a list of childcare within their area. If any of you have any questions or you have a client that you're thinking of, instead of going to the hotline, you can directly I give them this number and they can dial my extension, and I'll make an appointment with them and to do the intake assistant with the application and providing what the next step is. Bright Spark does provide, when families are experiencing homelessness, the state will yes, they will check the income and things like that. But the one thing is they need to provide third-party verification for being homeless. So if they are couch surfing, if they are, staying in a shelter. So some families are living in a car. So Bright Spark has a way to actually provide a third-party verification. Is something that the state is built into the subsidy. So then when they call us, we can, remove that barrier from the family. And this is another program. So there is the statewide subsidy, and then within King County, there's a different little subsidies. There's a one that I think most of people know. It's called Best Start for Kids, but this is a specific little bit different program that is within King County. So it's something that, so most of people will qualify the state subsidy if they're within the income guideline, where again, families experiencing homelessness is almost some like guarantee as long as they meet that. And then most of them, it's all about the income, but most of them don't even have any income. But there are families within King County that are maybe a little bit over the state requirement for the income. So these programs are here when the taxpayers decided, so they'll have a little bit less barriers, and they are for either students or someone who is in between jobs and need that little bit of help. So if you need more information about the CSPS program, I can definitely reach out to the people who deal with that regularly. And then I can also share this PowerPoint for anyone who is interested in. These programs are in Renton, Bellevue, Kent, and I just blocked myself, or Peters County. And this is a little bit more information about where to get these little bit more resources and how to do that. The families can go and do referral intake, and then also they can just call the number and we can transfer them to direct people, and or they can go to the website and put themselves in there. It's not in here, but the Best Start for Kids right now, most of the programs are on a waiting list, and they're all in King County, meaning like all the funding that was available is given, but there is a chance that the more funding will come. So they are placed in a waiting list. But you don't have to worry about that. You can just send the families over, and then we can put them on the waiting list and give them next steps. I know, I think I spoke so fast. I don't know, but please, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you, Hawa. We do have a question in the chat that's getting a thumbs up. So more than one person in the room has this question. So is accessing the 12-month subsidy just once during their lifetime? They're curious how it works with families that experience homelessness multiple times while the child is still of age that needs childcare.
That's a wonderful question. So that means so families who are not experiencing homelessness, they do have to report if any income has changed throughout so it's all about 12 months. But the families who are experiencing homelessness, they are given that 12-month period. So they don't, if they got a job and the little bit income has increased anything, they don't have to worry about the childcare being taken away and reassessing. So they are guaranteed for 12-month childcare while they find a housing and improve their lives. Once the 12 month is over, the state will reevaluate. If they again experiencing still homelessness, that it will be extended. I think before it used to be like once you get 12 months, then you would have to wait some time, but it's about evaluation. So it's guaranteed 12 months, where if you are not homeless, you have to provide an income, and each time throughout the year, you have to kind of like self-report and say, hey, I got a job, and now before I was making less in the state, but now I'm making, it could be anything, literally like $12 over, but you have to report to the state because you may have to pay back. I see someone that says, I can't understand you. Can you say a little bit more? And I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, so I'm not going to attempt.
Sorry, you were just saying so much and it was just, it sounded like you were bothered for half of everything you were saying. And then your voice just kicked in clear at the end.
Oh, so did you miss most of the things I was saying?
Yes, yeah, it was just coming in very interrupted. And then it just kicked in towards the end. I don't know if it was just me, but I couldn't hear you through most of what you were saying.
I think it might have just been on your end. I was able to hear Hawa without interruption. So hopefully you can go back and check it out in the recording because
Okay.
we've got it all there. So, but thanks for flagging that. Appreciate
Thank you.
that. Yeah. And we're getting a thank you to the answer to that question.
You're welcome, Jamie. Does anyone have any other questions? I know we're like timing, so, and also please, I'll put my email in the chat, and also you have the number, so you can always contact me, and I can also actually make time to talk to one-on-one if people are a little bit want more detail. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for being here, Hawa. I really appreciate you. And especially it sounds like you were stepping in maybe a little unexpectedly. So we really appreciate you being here. That's awesome. We are gonna move over to Team Child, and we have LaKayla Irving and Max Kaufman here. I don't know if you all have a presentation you want to share screen or if you just have information to share with us. Either way works, but yeah.
Yes, I do have a PowerPoint to present, and I'll go ahead and get that started. All righty, can you all see my screen pretty well?
Yep, and we've got the preview sides as well, so depending on what view you prefer.
There we go.
Good.
Sorry, I'm going to actually go back. All righty. Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for allowing Team Child to be in this space. My name is LaKayla Irving, and I am the King County Staff Attorney with Team Child. And I have with me Max Kaufman, and he is our Community Team Managing Attorney. And just to be a little bit more efficient to maximize our time with you all, Max is going to answer the questions in the chat while I present, so feel free to ask away. Alrighty, so just a little bit about who we are. So we are a civil legal aid organization. We provide legal services to youth and young adults. We are anti-racist, anti-oppression, and youth-led and youth-centered organization. And I do like to emphasize the youth-centered because sometimes if I have a parent who's reaching out and saying, hey, my youth can use some support in this area, can you help me? And then I talk to the youth and they're like, no, I don't want any support. Unfortunately, I have to go with what the youth says, and that can be a little bit disappointing for some parents, to say the least. And so we do like to emphasize that. So if you all are working with families and you know that they have a youth who could use our support, it's good to just ask, hey, does this youth actually want the support? Because unfortunately, Team Child won't be able to support the youth without their permission. So we really like to focus that we are youth-centered because this is the youth's life, and we like to amplify the voice and to make sure that we're going and following with what the youth wants. We uphold the rights of youth involved or at risk of being involved in the juvenile legal system to help them secure the education, healthcare, housing, positive outcomes in their lives. So, such as what was presented earlier, McKinney-Vento, that's something we support many, many youth on. So if you know a family who could benefit on the legal side of things, so let's say that there's a school district who's not providing them support that they're supposed to, please reach out to us. I always say, if we don't know the answer, we can help you find it. A little bit about our vision: it requires a bold goal of eliminating the use of youth incarceration across Washington State. That is a focus of ours, is to minimize and reduce the amount of encounters that youth have with the juvenile justice system. What we do, as I mentioned, we provide legal services, pretty straightforward. We also provide training and consulting. So if you have an organization that you think could benefit from some training with Team Child, whether it's regarding McKinney-Vento, that's the training we had earlier, or whether it's an IEP services that you know that your youth, they receive IEP services and you know families could benefit from receiving some training around that, we're happy to do that as well. However it may look, if you feel like your organization could benefit from training or consulting, please reach out to us. Like I said, if we don't have the answer, we can help you find it. However that may look, our thing is we just really want to provide and meet any needs that are out there. We also have a policy advocacy team that goes and meets with legislators to try and advocate for youth rights from a legislative standpoint. Who we serve. All right, this is getting to the nitty-gritty. We serve youth and young adults between the ages of 12 and 24 in 4 of our largest counties, which include King, Pierce, Yakima, and Spokane, as well as youth who are incarcerated in our juvenile prisons, which is JR. That's another term you typically hear. And we also specifically, I want to mention that we only serve youth who are considered low income. So our referral team will ask them a series of questions just to see if they qualify as low income, because we recognize youth who are low income do not have access to resources that others who are more financially stable that they may have. So we only support youth who are considered low income. A little bit about our legal services. So we really try and help youth who are facing barriers in several areas, not just in the ones that you see on your screen, but these tend to be our most prevalent and most common. So not being in school, whether they were suspended or expelled, if you know a youth, particularly who has an IEP, so they're receiving special education services, and they've been suspended time after time after time, something doesn't sound right, doesn't look right, please reach out to us, because we can take a look at things to see if the schools maybe violated their rights, or if there's some advocacy that can be done regarding IEP services. So the special education services that they're receiving, maybe we can support them to ensure that, hey, they should be receiving support in one area and not another. However they may look, we are a holistic organization. So whatever there's a need, we try and make sure we can meet that need. As well as if school's not working, so they can need support whether they're feeling unsafe or bullied, feeling discriminated against, McKinney-Vento, however that may look, we can support in those areas. Feeling unsafe at home or don't have a home. So let's say they're going from one home to another and they need really a more stable house, and they have a guardian who's not they have a individual who wants to be the guardian, so they're not their biological parent, and so they want to be the guardian. We can help with filing a guardianship petition. Or if they have no one available at all, let's say they're in a shelter and they really need a guardian, so we can help them with assisting in regards to dependency petitions. So we work with the public defender's office to get those filed. And so for those who may not know, dependency petitions are saying, hey, we need this child to be warded of the state, so they essentially enter into foster care. If the youth is having trouble getting healthcare or counseling, we can help in that area. So if they have any unmet or unidentified healthcare needs. If they're being locked up in detention, and so there's probation violations, warrants, police or school resource officer detention, or truancy or running away, or the parent won't help, feel free to reach out to us. We can also provide support in that area as well. Being incarcerated in our juvenile rehabilitation system. So some youth maybe exiting out of that program and they need support with exiting out, or they're going into a community housing facility and they need support in that area as well. We can do that. And even if you're not sure, hey, can Teen Child help? I'm not sure. I always say just reach out. It doesn't hurt. We can let you know if we can support in that area. But certainly not least, if they're having issues with landing a job or housing because of a juvenile record, they need support with record sealing or court fines and fees, please reach out to us, because we can support in that area as well. And I apologize if I'm talking fast. I'm just trying to be efficient and effective with the time that we have allotted. How to get help. So we try and make this very easy for individuals. If you want to request services from Teen Child, you can call us at the line that you see on your screen, toll free, or you can go on our website, teenchild.org, and you'll see at the top right of your screen, it'll say Get Help Now. You just click that, and on that screen, you'll see a referral form that you can click and fill out. Once you fill out that form, it will then automatically be submitted to us. So there's nothing you need to do outside of that. You'll fill out the information. It's pretty user-friendly. You fill it out, and then it'll come to our referral team, and they'll be able to look at it and move forward from there. Or if you're someone you're like, hey, I prefer to write things out, the screen is too much, you can always go on our website, print out the referral form, fill it out, and then you can scan it and email it to referral@teenchild.org. Or if you know an individual who's in the JR institution and they can benefit from our services, feel free to call that number on your screen or email the jrinfo@teenchild.org. So this is what our referral form looks like. You do not have to fill this out in an extensive way. It can be very basic information, such as who is making the referral. That lets us know who we can reach out to in the event that we're not able to contact the youth. Or we can collect data as far as where most of our referrals are coming from. So if a certain organization tends to submit a lot of referrals to us, we may reach out to that organization and say, hey, how can we further support by creating a partnership, whether it's providing training and consulting. However that may look, our biggest thing is that we really want to create partnerships with members in the community, because you all as well have direct communication with the youth that we serve. And so we just want to make sure we are putting our name out there to let people know that we're available to support and provide assistance. Some of the basic information that we definitely need are just simply the name of the youth who you are referring, as well as their birth date. That tends to be really helpful, and how we can contact them. So whether it's an email, a phone, that's really helpful. Please don't worry about if you don't have a parent or guardian's information to provide. That's not necessary. As long as we can reach the youth at the end of the day, that's what's most important. And if they're in JR, if you could provide any past or current criminal history information, that's helpful for us so that we know specifically what questions to ask surrounding that information that may be helpful for us to provide more effective services. And then the referral reason, this youth needs support in school, this youth needs support in housing. However that may look, please provide that information. Again, it does not have to be a dissertation, just some important information that we should know so that when we reach out to the youth, we can make sure that we want to have an attorney who's knowing what's going on so they can properly counsel that youth as far as their options that are available, and just so that we can make sure we're doing our best to support that youth and be there for them. A little bit about our training and consulting. We do offer this, and we like to offer this about Lord, if I get my words together. We like to offer this in addition to building community with partnership with communities, and so this is our avenue of doing that. And so a need in your organization, if you all feel like, hey, we could use more training in regards to education, we could use more training in regards to guardianships, because we have a lot of youth who have an individual in their life who they want to be declared the legal guardian. Please reach out to us. We're happy to provide those training and consulting services. If you want to get involved and support our mission, you're more than welcome to scan that QR code on your screen, or you can go on our website to find out more information as well. And I'll wait a couple seconds for those who may be wanting to get out their phones to scan that code. And again, I apologize if I'm blazing through this. I just recognize the time, and so I want to honor the time that we've been allotted and give space for other organizations. Alrighty, do we have any questions? And as you can see on your screen, you're welcome to reach out to our King County office specifically by going to kinginfo@teenchild.org. You can email us there, or you can call that number on your screen.
Thank you so much, LaKayla and Max. Yeah, I was going to say, you all do such amazing and wonderful work. I know we've partnered before in the past. So, Max, sounds like you have something to share and add, please.
Yes, well, I wanted to give a big shout out to LaKayla and let you all know that LaKayla is a rock star in our office. And so she humbly gave the information in our process, but she really is valuable to our community. So we're really lucky to have her in Team Child. So your referrals are in good hands. I don't know how much time I have, but I kind of want to do something really quickly and kind of off the cuff related, harkening back to our McKinney-Vento discussion. You know, we hear a lot about how the McKinney-Vento programs in King County, particularly Seattle Public Schools, you know, the programs are limited. One area of advocacy that we're interested in exploring with you all and maybe planting some seeds for some broader, like systemic thinking about solutions is leveraging the child's Medicaid benefit, the Early Periodic Screening, Diagnostic, and Treatment, EPSDT, which is very expansive and contains some very strongly worded federal mandates to provide comprehensive healthcare services. And I would love to think creatively, especially in regards to the budget constraints in Seattle Public Schools, about integrating and leveraging that federal benefit to help offset those financial constraints. So by redirecting those health-related expenses to free up McKinney-Vento funds for educational purposes, so we utilize EPSDT for health-related educational barriers, and then also expanding McKinney-Vento programs from there. You know, there's a lot of discussion about transportation. So leveraging EPSDT for transportation to help families access medical appointments. You know, there's a whole host of things, integrating providers into the McKinney-Vento process for seamless case management, deploying mobile health clinics. We can go on, but I wanted to just put those out there to start thinking about some broader solutions to the problems that you all noted. And we'd love to be a part of those discussions. So sorry, I just kind of went off the rails a little bit, but I wanted to just get that out there. It was burning on my chest.
I really appreciate it, Max. That was a huge, important thing to bring up. So really appreciate you doing it. I think you're already connected to Holly Willis, our community policy manager here at the coalition. If not, I threw her email into the chat. And this is for anybody that wants to learn more about coalition's policy work, but specifically, I think these are the kinds of connections that we're trying to make. So thank you both for being here. Thank you for sharing all of your incredible resources and work, and that plug, Max. We are gonna hand it over to Todd Hobart from Olive Crest. So Todd, take it away.
Great, thank you. Let me share the screen and the slides. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Nicole and I are with Olive Crest, which is a foster licensing organization. And we're with a smaller program within Olive Crest, the Host Families program. And that program is a foster care prevention program. So it works like foster care, where children stay with family that's not their own family. But it's different in that everything's entirely voluntary. So it's like getting an extra friend or grandparent or relative to help out a family when they just don't have those other safe people in their lives, going through a crisis of some sort, needing care for their children. That's where our host families want to help wrap around those families, keep those kids safe, and keep them out of foster care. So some of the reasons that families choose the host families program, top one before the pandemic were families experiencing homelessness. And you can see some of these different things will go together, but it could be some of the things we already talked about this morning. It could be a mom staying in her car, needing to find employment and housing, just needing a break for a short time, have her kids hosted while she works on finding those things. Or it could be someone in a shelter who also needs a break, or even doubled up living with family. Sometimes we have situations where someone's trying to stay in senior housing and children are not allowed there, something like that. So we can do a hosting until that family can get into a better housing type of situation. Another one that we help out with a lot of are the medical or hospitalization needs. So it could be a family staying in a shelter, needing to give birth or have a procedure done, again, without those safe people in their lives to help care for the kids. So we can host those kids while they get that taken care of and then get them back to them without going into foster care. Help out some single parents needing to get detox or treatment, could be a week, 30 days, even more. Host the children. Sometimes they just need to find that bed that will work for having their children with them when they're in treatment. And so we can kind of bridge that gap until they can have their kids with them. People staying in domestic violence shelters, sometimes they just need a break. And so we could host the children on a weekend, or sometimes they have to travel back to where something has occurred, take care of something legally. We can host the children while they get that taken care of as well. Incarceration is pretty rare for us. Sometimes someone has to serve a warrant, we'll host the children while that goes on. Sometimes people are just overwhelmed. We see a lot of mental health type needs, parents needing inpatient mental health treatment, kids just having trouble parenting their kids. So sometimes we'll host in those situations. But you see there at the bottom, the one thing that all of them have in common is that idea of social isolation. When they come to us, they usually just don't have those other safe people in their lives for whatever reason. They could be moved here from out of state. People have passed away in their lives, or bridges have been burned, but they just don't have those safe people. So that's where we want to help bring some community to them, help care for their children, and help get them through a difficult time. So the calls come from relatives or friends. Sometimes people find us on the internet. Most of the time, agencies will come to us and they'll already be connected with the resource, but the agency realizes that this family could use some hosting. And so that's where most of it comes from. About 20% of our referrals come from state social workers. If the case is not going to go to dependency, if it's just a FAR CPS case, we could be a resource in those type of situations. As I mentioned, shelters will refer to us, sometimes drug and alcohol treatment facilities. Schools, we're working on it. That was more before the pandemic. We have to do some more outreach there. Hospital social workers, law enforcement, kind of rarely. And then when churches hear about us, they'll refer to us sometimes too. We just have 3 goals in the program. We want to intervene early before that abuse or neglect occurs. And then we want to help support and stabilize the family. And along with that, we see ourselves as supplementary care, not substitutionary care. What that means is we're not trying to take the place of any parent or caregiver. We're really there to help support them. That's our whole goal. Get that child back with them as soon as they're ready and help support them as a family and keep the kids with their birth parent or caregiver where we think they belong. Along with that, parents voluntarily request a host family and retain full legal custody. So I think that's important to emphasize because it could be a scary thing, imagining your child staying with a family that you don't know. And so we always let people know that they're in charge. If they want their child back at any time and for any reason, they always get their kids back because they keep custody. All of our host families are volunteers. They don't receive any financial compensation. So a little different than foster care in that way. There's no state stipend that comes with it. Our families are, we just say they're approved through Olive Crest, not licensed through the state. Similar process though, we do background checks, we do a home study, we do training with our family. So we make sure that they're safe people to be able to host children. And we try to take any child for any reason. We say any child, any reason, but there are some situations that are tough for us. Sometimes we get those calls that, a child is coming out of children's hospital and they've acted out sexually against siblings or aggressively, or maybe they're using drugs, running away. Those type of things wouldn't be safe hostings for our family, but short of those sorts of things, we do our best to try and say yes to situations. Our average length of stay is about a week, including those real short ones where maybe we're just hosting for a weekend or a night or two to help a family out. And then sometimes for teens, it could be a lengthier hosting, sometimes weeks, months. Sometimes that's a more difficult path, getting that child to wherever their next place is going to be. But the average is about 7 days. Little over half the kids we're serving are 5 years old and under. Another third is about in that grade school age range. And then we do serve infant through 18 and even teen parents, but a lesser percentage is 13 years old and over because those can be tough, complicated hostings and harder to find host families that want teens, as you might imagine. That 98% number is really important to us. That's our whole goal. Get them back with that birth parent or caregiver where they belong. And vast majority of the time, that's exactly what happens. Only 1 or 2 times per year does it have to go to child welfare usually. This program was started in Chicago in 2003. It was initially called Safe Families for Children. Olive Crest launched this program in 2009, and in Western Washington, we started it in 2010 in Pierce County, and then it's moved up into King County, Snohomish County. We have it in Skagit County also. And then Olive Crest and Safe Families parted ways in 2022, but Olive Crest has continued this same program, and we just call it the Host Families program now. And we've done over 1,000 hostings in Western Washington to date. So all this takes place within an infrastructure of safety. We follow best practices for out-of-home care. We do the training, we have home studies, we have a hotline, which I'll talk about in a second. And then before a hosting can happen, we do an intake with the family and they sign these forms. A waiver of liability saying they're not going to sue Olive Crest or the host family, a hosting agreement, which allows the child to be taken and picked up from school or daycare, our policy acknowledgement, and then medical authorization in case the child needs medical care. That would allow them to see a doctor. Referral process, you can go online to olivecrest.org and there's a little thing at the top that says get help. You just click on that and choose the region and fill out a little information and it sends an email to me and Nicole. Or you can call that number there, and right now it goes to Nicole's cell phone. And she's our intake coordinator. You speak with her, give her a few details. We need to know location of the family, the situation, how many kids, what's going on. And then if an agency calls, we'll eventually need to talk to a parent or caregiver who has custody of the child. And we always have to work out that custody stuff up front because whoever has custody of the kids has to agree to the hosting. After that, we can do an intake and sign paperwork. Most of the intakes we're doing in person, that's our preference. So we can get to know the family, they can get to know us, and we can learn more about the situation. After that, we can start looking for a host family. We email all of our host families in Western Washington, let them know about the need. If there's time and it's not too much of an emergency, we can set up a meeting with the birth parent and the host family. That way they can meet each other and make sure they feel comfortable with the situation, exchange some contact information. And then after that, a hosting can begin. There you go. Sped through it. That's a little bit about the Olive Crest Host Families program.
Awesome. Thank you, Todd and Nicole, for being here. There are two really great questions. In the sake of time, I'm going to ask if you could answer them in the chat about how long a child is able to be hosted. I know you gave the average, and then speak to the diversity of the host families. If you are able to do that in the chat, I'm going to hand it over to Naomi. Thank you both for being here. This is an amazing program, so I appreciate your being here.
Okay, I'm gonna just pull up my, uh-oh. Sorry about that. Ugh. And now, of course, it's saying, no, don't let you share your screen. Hold on a minute. Okay, I should be able to share now. Yes. Great. All right. Hi, all. So my name is Naomi Strand. I'm the supervising attorney in the King County Youth Homelessness Program at Legal Counsel for Youth and Children, LCYC. LCYC is an organization. We protect the interests and safety of youth in Washington by advancing their legal rights. We do direct legal representation. We work with community partnerships, and we also have systemic advocacy. LCYC attorneys are in 4 major areas. There's child welfare, which is like dependency and those areas, juvenile court, some immigration adjacent things. We can file things in state court in partnership with immigration attorneys, and the youth homelessness program. And I'll be talking about our youth homelessness program. We provide free legal services to youth and young adults aged 12 to 24 who are experiencing homelessness or housing instability. Just in general, our core values are equity, just like Team Child mentioned. We work with the youth. It's the youth agency and power. They're the ones that are directing representation. They are our clients. So they need to have buy-in that they're going to, they want to work with us. Anti-racism is a huge part of everything that we do. And our community partnerships are crucial to us being able to provide the holistic representation that we seek. And also we have innovation, because a lot of times there isn't an easy legal solution to the problem, and we have to be creative. It's, youth-centered, trauma-informed. I'm going to skip through this so that we can get to things. Just really important, since we are attorneys, we are not mandated reporters. Sometimes that can be very useful in talking to youth, because they know they have somebody that they can talk to and actually tell what's really going on without fear that something's going to happen that they don't know yet. And so we can talk through the pros and cons of what's going on and what they need to do. We are all virtual. We meet youth where they are, in shelters, schools, streets, libraries, wherever, and it's youth directed. These are some of the, a very broad overview of some of the kinds of things we can help with for youth who are under 18. A lot of times, the major issues are placement of something is either, they're not safe at home, they're in a shelter, or they need to get somewhere that is safe. We can help with emergency minor guardianships. Many youth are interested in, emancipation, and we can talk through that. We can also do the child in need of services, which could be a temporary court placement while they work things out with their parents when there's been a conflict in the home, and we can help file those. We also file dependencies when needed to get services for youth. And then for our young adults, there's a wide range of other things, because they are able to sign more, they have more access to things that they can sign. But we also work with minors who are trying to access medical care and showing that they are either a mature minor or they're unaccompanied youth and they need access to services. For our program, it's as said, young person between the ages of 12 to 24 experiencing or at risk of homelessness or housing instability. And then we have attorneys in King, Walla Walla, Clark, Thurston, Pierce, and Skagit counties. Referrals can just, you can click on our this link on our website to fill out the referral form. This is what the referral form looks like. It's very simple, just putting in, and you can either click that you are a youth making referrals or you're a referring advocate. We get a lot of referrals directly from youth that are seeking services, and they just have to fill out a little bit about who they are and what they need, and then we will reach out to them as soon as possible. So it kind of skipped through quickly because I know we're running out of time, but feel free to, and I'll just put these are our contact information. You can reach out to me, and the YHP at lcycwa.org is our intake for all of those counties. You can email that for any of the counties that we work in and get.
Thank you, Naomi. And I apologize for my poor time management and appreciate you getting through your slides. So I'm asking for forgiveness here. This was really, really great and helpful. We do have time for, I think, one question if folks have a question for Naomi or LCYC's services. Max says, I hope it's okay, Naomi, but I want to put a plug in for your legal literacy videos, which are great for sharing with clients or just learning more about legal rights. And so there's a link there.
Thanks, Max. And if you haven't noticed, Team Child and LCYC work together on a lot of things and partner with each other to provide services in a lot of areas.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here, all of you. This has been really, really wonderful. I did earlier in the chat throw in a link to a post-training survey. We really do appreciate any feedback you have for us today, good or bad. How we can shift this to really be meeting the needs, making sure this is a good use of your time. So we brought it right up to the edge, and I apologize for that. But thank you so much for spending your time today with us. Thank you to all of our presenters for being here and sharing your good information. I hope you all have a lovely, wonderful rest of the day. Be well and take care.